指揮官様指揮官様指揮官
指揮官
ご主人様指揮官指揮官指揮官様
The Japanese term, yandere, is defined as such. A term for a person who is initially loving and caring to someone they like a lot until their romantic love, admiration, and devotion becomes feisty and mentally destructive in nature through either overprotectiveness, violence, brutality, or all three combined. The term is a portmanteau of the words yanderu, mentally or emotionally ill, and dere, lovey-dovey. Yandere characters are often mentally unstable, deranged, and sometimes use violence or emotional abuse as an outlet for their emotions. Yandere are usually, but not always, female characters. Dere types are a common trope in East Asian anime, light novels, manga, and games, with the 5 most common being Dere, someone who is shy and quiet, Dere, someone who is sweet and energetic, Dere, someone who is calm and collected, Tsundere, someone who is rude and hostile to their love interest despite their true feelings, and the aforementioned Yandere. Azur Lane is no such stranger to any of these archetypes, specifically with any character in the game having the tag of Yandere stapled to them if they show the slightest leaning towards it by the community. This video will set out to explore the commonly discussed and well-known Yanderes of Azur Lane, seeing if they're truly Yandere or if they're just clingy, caring, or manipulative. It will also discuss why the Azur Lane community is so quick to call a ship a Yandere. To help guide us through the different Yanderes in Azur Lane, as if they are Yandere or not, I'll be making use of this compass. The y-axis shows how manipulative or protective they are, while the x-axis is the scale of how much their mental health relies on or is in need of the commander. The characters will be revealed as the video goes on. If a character has multiple versions of herself or skins with voice lines, all versions and skins will be looked at. Beginning with one of the most agreed upon and popular yanderes by the community, we have the Sakura Empire's Akagi-class aircraft carrier, Ijan Akagi. From looking at her voice lines, memory, and involvement in the story, Akagi fits the bill of a yandere quite well. To begin with, we have her voice lines, most of which involve the commander and their relationship with or interacting with Akagi. Making sure the commander focuses on her, being intimidated by other women, providing everything for and defending the commander, and even lying or skipping over the past are all displayed through these voice lines. Her idol version, Akagi Muse, also displays this. This behavior extends into her memory story, Red Spider Lily's Love. Summarizing what happens, Akagi sees that the Eagle Union, especially Enterprise, has done better than the Sakura Empire in their exercises. She then conducts an exercise with the other Sakura carriers and is more strict than usual because Enterprise is better than her, becoming jealous when the commander stares at another girl when shopping with her, saying that she'll end them, saying that the commander saved her from the sirens and that she'll make the commander love her to Graf Zeppelin, getting overprotective when the commander accidentally cuts himself with a knife, and the commander wanting to care for Akagi as she does with them. Akagi-chan does not have these yandere tendencies, instead showing masochistic attributes such as calling the commander a slave quite often, with 20 out of 26 voice lines calling them one. As previously mentioned, the commander saved the first carrier division from being controlled by the sirens, which was most likely the catalyst for Akagi becoming infatuated with the commander, as if they had not, Akagi would most likely treat the commander as her younger alternative universe counterpart does. But there are some instances of Akagi not following through on being a yandere. For example, the manga series Queen's Orders, if it is considered canon for at least part of the story, Queen Elizabeth would have had her position as secretary challenged before the events of the manga occurred, as well as being challenged more constantly and violently than she was. In chapters 6 to 8, Elizabeth challenged Akagi after Akagi insults Elizabeth over her stature and bust, putting her position as secretaryship on the line. Instead of instantly going for the kill and ensuring victory over Elizabeth, Akagi instead tells Kaga to hang back because she wants to play with Warspite and Elizabeth first. She only goes full force after Elizabeth insults her. After Akashi stops the battle and shows Akagi a fake video of the commander to her, Akagi is tricked and thinks nothing of it. You can argue that she was blinded by her love or that the video explained what happened to the commander, but I believe there would be more questions about the commander and their whereabouts from Akagi. That being said, Akagi serves as a good baseline for yanderes in Azur Lane, albeit a partially flawed one if you consider some of the stories and events within Azur Lane, similar to the next core yandere. The Taihou class aircraft carrier from the Sakura Empire, IJN Taihou, is another of the most agreed upon yanderes in the Azur Lane community. Unlike Akagi, however, she acts more subservient to the commander, while also threatening them in some instances. For example, she believes that she is unworthy to be in the commander's service, while constantly offering her body to them, while also threatening them to not touch any girl or to never lie to her. Taihou Muse also exhibits some of these yandere traits, though not to the same degree as her original counterpart, or how Akagi Muse was on par with base Akagi. She does enjoy having the commander watch her, and calls her enemies miserable insects and pests in the usual yandere fashion, as well as the innuendos, but again, not to the same degree. Further unlike Akagi, Taihou slowly moves herself into the commander's room, first creating a copy of their key, then putting in their own bed and toiletries, and finally revealing that she knew about the oath ring the commander would give her if they plan on doing so. Taihou's behavior extends into the other Azur Lane media as well, with both the slow ahead manga and anime, as well as the Queen's Order series, both times being seen trying to get a copy or already possessing a copy of the commander's room key, as well as snooping around their office for personal and private information. Her memory storyline continues her yandere behavior, much like Akagi's, but instead of waxing poetic and proving herself to be good enough for the commander, like Akagi, she instead places herself forcefully into the commander's life, takes care of their daily needs, and even fends off Akagi, with the storyline finishing with the commander saying that they need Taihou, possibly being the only successful yandere to have the commander say that they need them, unlike Akagi, who is more so on equal footing with the commander as they both care for each other equally instead of needing the other. As we move away from the core yanderes, we reach our next ship girl that's possibly considered a yandere, though I would argue is not as much of one as Akagi or Taihou. She's more so mentally ill and takes pleasure in the deaths of others, and will kill other ship girls who try and get close to the commander, while Akagi and Taihou only scare them off or fight them. The Roon class heavy cruiser of the Iron Blood, KMS Roon. Roon's murderous tendencies appear to turn on and off like a light switch. There are some voice lines from both her base and muse form where she enjoys giving hugs to the other ship girls, something that most would assume is uncommon for yandere types, as you'd believe they want to keep other ship girls at arm's length. As expected, she does dote on the commander as well, through cooking and the aforementioned hugs. But when the switch is flicked, the change is noticeable. Sinking enemies to prove her worth, chasing after those who try and flee, claiming that those who will hurt her will pay, taking pleasure in the killing of others, and in her base pledge line saying that other ship girls will pay because she is envious and harbors a deep hatred for them. This is less yandere and more of a dacnomaniac / yangire who has a lust for killing just because she enjoys it. Roon Muse leans more towards the traditional definition of yandere, and seems to have given up, for the most part, her murderous tendencies for singing and enjoys singing to the commander, but still possesses the battle lust she had in her base form. This is again also shown in the Queen's Orders manga, where Graf Zeppelin reveals to Queen Elizabeth that Roon enjoys seeing cute things torn apart and enjoys battles a bit too much. To me, a major difference between how I perceive Roon is that she enjoys battles and crushing things to the point that even the commander couldn't calm her down if they tried, while they could calm down Akagi or Taihou, for example. Roon should be placed in a psychiatric hospital so that she does not daydream of killing her allies because she hates them for existing, which is why she's not a true yandere, but a yangire. We venture further away from what a core yandere is with our next ship, and I don't know why the Sakura Empire, more specifically their aircraft carriers, are often considered yandere, but regardless, we have the Sakura Empire's Hyo class light aircraft carrier, IJN Junyou. Junyou is well known for believing that she is, or trying to gaslight the commander into believing she is, the commander's oldest friend. She constantly talks about, back then, being childhood friends with the commander, and so on, attempting to gaslight the commander into believing they're truly childhood friends. But that's about where the yandere qualities end in my eyes. Emotional and mental manipulation may be a yandere-like trait, but only being emotionally and mentally manipulative makes her an abusive person, not a yandere. Granted, there's a total of only two lines that do mention not wanting others to get in the way, or girls needing to read the room, but I'd argue that's because she doesn't want anyone getting in the way of her gaslighting, as others would be able to defend the commander against it. Her meta version appears to have realized the error of her ways, and is less emotionally manipulative than her base counterpart, even going so far as to go back on her word about being lifelong friends, not having answers about their past, and accepting that though they may not be genuine lifelong friends, she and the commander are still close. So Junyou does have the emotional manipulation that some yanderes possess, but not much else. She doesn't get as defensive as the other girls when the commander interacts with someone who isn't her, or gets as violent when this occurs to them. Thus, I believe she isn't a yandere, just emotionally manipulative in trying to cut off other girls so that she can gaslight the commander better. Going from the emotional manipulation of a yandere to the mental reliance of one, we have our next ship girl. One, much like Junyou, I consider not to be a yandere, but just clingy and a girl with self-esteem issues. We have the Royal Navy's Dido class light cruiser, HMS Dido. Dido's voice lines reflect how much she needs the attention from the commander to validate her self-worth, as she constantly looks for the attention and approval of the commander. If she makes a minor mistake, she calls herself worthless, pitiable, and so on, asking to not be thrown away or abandoned, possibly alluding to abandonment issues on top of a poor self-image, with both her base form and muse form reflecting this. But what Dido lacks is the aggression towards other ship girls that interact with the commander, as well as the manipulation. The only lines that she has that regards other ship girls is one where she says she's a bit jealous that the commander treats other klutzes and the royal maids well, much like her, worrying about her sisters and wishing she had the confidence of Taihou muse. These sorts of lines, especially the first one, are confused for being yandere, when it's just Dido wishing she was more confident or having poor self-esteem. Much like Junyou, I can see how some of the behaviors confuse for what a yandere does, but it doesn't take all that much effort to look a bit deeper and realize that, as I said, Dido has self-esteem, self-worth, and possible abandonment issues, which is why she wants the commander's approval so much. Being emotionally manipulative or needing validation doesn't make them a yandere. Putting them together can result in one, but separate, they're just in need of some mental help or a friend. The last two I'm going to combine into one section: the Sakura Empire's Takao class heavy cruiser Atago, and the Royal Navy's Unicorn class light aircraft carrier HMS Unicorn. I've seen talks here and there of how they're both yanderes. They're not. They're just not. If coddling the commander, being a bit clingy, or calling themselves big sister or the commander big brother is considered to be yandere behavior, then there should be a ton more ship girls that are considered yandere. Doubly so if all the ship girls are at 100 affection, because, loving the commander would make them clingy. The only basis that I could find for Atago being yandere is more so her being perverted and wanting to get into the commander's pants than it is being yandere. There's no emotional manipulation or reliance on the commander, nor jealousy of other ship girls getting close to the commander. She's just a bit horny. The same can be said about Unicorn. Nothing is there to support her being a yandere, outside of one face that she makes in her angelic night skin for the special touch line. The Azur Lane community, from what I've seen, is desperate to label any girl who is even slightly clingy as a yandere. Outside of that, Unicorn is just the little sister archetype of character, cute, quiet, and happy to be around her big brother. There are also people who call Belfast and Enterprise yanderes, but they are also not. At the end of the day, people are, of course, allowed to believe what they want to, but they should be aware that not every clingy ship girl or one that shows jealousy is a yandere. To fully be a yandere, displaying similar behavior to Akagi and Taihou, and being near where they are on the compass would make them one. The rest would either fall into the categories of, for example, clingy, needy, coddling, and manipulative. I believe these ships are labeled so liberally as yandere because of how popular fanon or fan canon is in gacha communities. If I were to guess why yandere is a popular label, I'd say it's because 1. The fans like the idea of having someone obsessed over them, something that doesn't occur in their life, and 2. The ease of applying it to a character. It's easier to call a character a yandere over one line or a face they make than it is to call them a tsundere, for example. Thank you for watching. Please follow my Twitter for updates, and check out my other Azur Lane and Arknights videos as well. The next video will most likely be on what determines a T-doll's rarity.